Hey, what's going on everybody? This is Noble, and today we're going to be doing an updated version of the Buster Blader deck profile. So this is one I just kind of wanted to revisit with, Dragon Buster Destruction Sword getting released off the ban list, thank goodness, because Unicarrier are just going to kind of swap places a little bit. And I was really excited as, one of the 24 Buster players in the United States. I was just super excited about this because I really hated that such a powerful card for this archetype. This deck just really got punished because other people were using it, and I get it. It was extremely meta relevant and maybe arguably kind of necessary, but this deck did take a hit because it's an extremely powerful tool in this rogue deck. And Buster Blader is a really fun deck to play if you haven't played it. You don't even have to play against dragons. There's really a way to lock your opponent down. It doesn't really matter what they're playing, but we'll get into that. Before we jump into this, I just want to mention, if you haven't already done so, now's a great time to subscribe, hit the bell so you can become part of the notification team, give this video a thumbs up, and let's jump right on into this Buster Blader deck profile. Okay, to start this off, we're playing double Buster Blader and then also double Buster Blader the Destruction Swordsman. So this is one that the ratios I see this played a lot of different ways. A lot of times I'll see 1 and 3 or 3 and 1. Or, I kind of like splitting in the middle. I like 2 and 2. If you want to play this at a different ratio, that is totally fine. It's just something, I just like splitting it in the middle. The original Buster Blader is really cool. And then if you don't know what the Destruction Swordsman does, this card's name becomes Buster Blader. While it's on the field or in the graveyard, if a monster or monsters your opponent controls destroy a battle or card effect is sent in the graveyard, you can target one of those destroyed monsters and equip it to this card. Once per turn, you can send one monster you control that's equipped to this card to the graveyard. Destroy all monsters your opponent controls with the same type as that monster sent to the graveyard. You won't use this a ton. A lot of times it's really just fodder to go into your extra deck plays, but it is cool to have that effect available as an option to you if you need it. Again, if you want to do different ratios, go for it. I'm not going to come knocking on your door and be like, you didn't play 3, did you? You didn't do it. I mean, I might. We'll see. Only one way to find out. All right, so next up, we're playing triple Buster Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman. This one's really cool. When this card is normal summon, you can add a Destruction Sword card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, which really helps the consistency of this deck. You can only use one of the following effects of Buster Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman per turn, and only once that turn. You can attribute this card, special summon one Buster Blader from your hand or graveyard. If this card is in your graveyard and you control Buster Blader, you can discard one Destruction Sword card, special summon this card. So it is really cool to be able to get this card back onto the field from the graveyard, and then you just being able to attribute it and special summon a Buster Blader from either one of two places, your hand or graveyard. It's really cool. I really do like this card quite a bit. Yeah, I really do think you should max this one out. I've tried it at 2 and I didn't like it, so I didn't do it at 3. Next up, playing double Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. Now this card I only run at 2. Now you could arguably bump it up to 3, especially since this is literally the archetype that this card was made for. This is a Buster Blader deck. This card was made for this deck. It's extremely powerful, can lock your opponent out of the extra deck. They're going to try and out this as quickly as they can. That's why I do run it at 2. I felt like 3 was just a little bit overkill, but you could do that if you wanted to. I'm also running one Wizard Buster Destruction Sword. A lot of people forget about this card. While it's equipped to a monster, monsters in your opponent's graveyard cannot activate their effect. So that is a really powerful card because a lot of decks activate effects from the graveyard. So it can really just kind of kick your opponent when they're down. I do just run one of this. If you don't want to run this one, you don't have to do that. Next up, I'm playing the triple Tinyi Spirit Adhara. I like this card a lot. I think it works really well with this deck. If you control no effect monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can banish this card from your hand to graveyard. Then target one of your banished war monsters, which, none of that really applies too much in this deck. But then I'm also playing double Galaxy Dragon. Now, this is something I threw into this deck a while ago, and I just haven't looked back since. This is a really cool card, and it works really well with this deck. Let me explain to you why. This card can only attack Dragon-type monsters. If this card battles a Dragon-type monster, this card gains 1,000 attack during the damage step only. Also negate that monster's effects during each battle phase as long as the card remains face up on the field. At first glance, it might not look too impressive, but you can only attack Dragon-type monsters. Okay, well, the cool thing about this is we run DNA Surgery in this deck, and a lot of people don't like that, but whatever, I do, okay? And Buster Dragon also changes your opponent's monsters to dragons. So The key of the deck is to really basically lock your opponent into their monsters becoming dragons and then being able to go into place from there. So this card is literally a 4-star normal summon, 3,000 attack beat stick on your opponent because their stuff is going to be dragons. 4-star, 3,000 attack, and it can negate their effects. This is a really, really good card, and I really love it. I really haven't looked back ever since I put this card in this deck. And then lastly, there's not a big monster count at all in the Buster Blader deck. Just playing triple draw and lock. I did add some hand traps just because I just felt it kind of needed a little extra oomph. If you don't want to run different hand traps, it's literally just my hand trap of preference for this deck. If you want to run something else, that's totally fine. So, only a few minutes in, we're already done with the monsters. Not a very big monster count at all for this deck. So let's move into the spells. So for the spells, I'm playing Double Destruction Swordsman Fusion. This card is fantastic. I don't max it out. I did at one point, but it felt like 2 really worked a little bit better. So Destruction Swordsman Fusion is a quick play spell, and it's basically our built-in polymerization for the deck. If you fusion summon one fusion monster that lists Buster Blader as material from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or either side of the field as fusion material. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. Add this card to your hand. You only use the effect once per turn. That's the big reason why I don't run this at 3, because you can recycle it back to your hand. Now there are going to be games where your opponent's going to realize, hey, this card is allowing him to do the things. And they're going to try and banish it from the graveyard or something like that. And you might want to side in, if you're playing like locals or something, you might want to side in a 3rd copy if you keep finding yourself in that predicament. But overall, 2 seems to work pretty well. Also running triple Foolish Burial Goods. This card works really great with this deck because you can just basically throw in anything you want. So Foolish Burial Goods, if you don't know what it does, it's Foolish Burial for spells and traps. You take 1 spell and trap card from your deck, and you throw it in the graveyard, and you only activate 1 Foolish Burial Goods per turn. But it's just really helpful being able to. A lot of these cards have graveyard effects, and they're really beneficial. So just being able to basically go ahead and use them straight from the deck basically is really awesome. Okay, so for a few 1-ofs, I'm running 1 Monster Reborn, the really cool gold. I really like the way it feels, gold rare or whatever. 1 Dragon Shrine. If you don't want to run Dragon Shrine, instead want to run Foolish Burial or something, that's fine, because I'm not running Foolish Burial in this particular build. But I just kind of like Dragon Shrine. A 1-for-1, and then also 1 Instant Fusion. Okay, now for the traps. The traps are I mean, this whole deck's flexible, but the trap lineup is flexible. This is what I'm choosing to play. I really like this build quite a bit. It's pretty dang consistent in my opinion. So let me show you. I'm playing Double Destruction Sword Flash. Now, I bumped Destruction Sword Flash. Oh, it looks so pretty. I bumped Destruction Sword Flash down from 3. I felt like 3 was just a little bit too much, and I could have used that spot for something else. But Destruction Sword Flash is my favorite card in this entire deck. And let me explain to you why. If you control a fusion monster that lists Buster Blader as material, which I mean you're going to, right? You're going to. Banish all monsters your opponent controls. All right, let's stop right there. Banish all monsters your opponent controls. So that is literally the best of non-targeting, non-destruction removal. Like almost. Like that is so amazing. It doesn't target, doesn't destroy, banishes. Non-targeting, non-destruction removal is extremely powerful in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! When a card or effect is activated that targets a Buster Blader monster or monsters you control, except during the damage step, you can banish this card from your graveyard, negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. So this not only has non-targeting, non-destruction removal for your opponent's entire monster board, it has an amazing graveyard protection effect. And on top of all of this, this is not even a soft once per turn. You can use multiple of these at any given time if you have them on the field or in the graveyard. So that's why I ran this at 3, because just the fact that it can even help you so much from the graveyard. But I just didn't really find myself using 3 in a game, if we got to that point. So I really like this card. I love this card. It's my favorite one. So I do recommend you play it at 2, but I guess you can play it at 1. I just really love what that card does. Another one I'm playing at 2 is Destruction Sword Memory. So what this one does is you discard 1 Destruction Sword card, and you special summon a Buster Blader monster from the deck. You can banish this card from your graveyard, fusion summon 1 Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your graveyard. So it's kind of like a graveyard polymerization as well. And then just being able to special summon a Buster Blader monster from the deck by discarding a Destruction Sword card, which a lot of times you're going to want your Destruction Sword card in the graveyard anyway. It's just a win-win. Playing triple of Prologue of the Destruction Swordsman. This one's really cool. You send one I really wish it was a super rare or something, but you send one Destruction Sword card and one Buster Blader monster from your deck to the graveyard, except another copy of this card. Special summon one Buster Dragon from your extra deck or graveyard, but destroy it during the end phase of the next turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard this turn. Destruction Sword cards you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. You only activate one Prologue of the Destruction Swordsman per turn. So this card does a lot. You send a Destruction Sword card and Buster Blader monster from your deck to the graveyard. So you basically Foolish Burial and Foolish Burial goods. You get out Buster Dragon, so your opponent's monsters are going to become dragon. It doesn't get destroyed until the end phase of the next turn. Basically, all this can really add up and have a recipe for, by the end phase of the next turn, you're going to win. So it doesn't really matter if that Buster Dragon is going to be destroyed or not. It's just an extremely powerful card. I really love it. I do run it 3. If you want to play 2, 2, and 2 of these traps, that's fine. You could do that. This is just the ratio I'm going with. I'm also running, and some people are going to get mad at me, and I'm sorry, but I'm running triple DNA surgery. I got hate for this last time. It is what it is. I don't really care. I really like DNA surgery in this deck because it's just a more consistent way of making your opponent's monsters dragons, which is literally the whole point of the deck. So DNA surgery, you just say, hey, you got your stuffed dragons now and they're dragons, and then your effects go off. That's literally what it does. If you want to play this and you don't even want to max it at 3, that's fine. If you want to play it 1, you can play it 2, that's fine. I really like it. I've played it without DNA surgery, but I like it infinitely better with DNA surgery. So that's what I'm going with. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm also running just triple trap trick just to basically help out with the consistency of the traps that we want to see in this deck. I mean, it is what it is. You know what trap trick does. So, okay, that's actually it for the main deck, guys. Let's move on into the extra deck. Okay, so for the extra deck, we're playing triple of Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. You could run this at 2, but this is a Buster Blader deck profile, so I'm going to run this at 3. But this card is really, really cool. So what this card does is it must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card cannot attack directly. So that's the one caveat with this card, but don't worry about that too much. It's not going to be an issue for the most part. This card gains 1,000 attack and defense for each dragon type monster your opponent controls or is in their graveyard. Change all dragon type monsters your opponent controls to defense position. All right, you can see right there why it's not a big deal, because it's going to have a lot of attack and it's going to do freaking piercing damage like crazy. Also, dragon type monsters in your opponent's possession cannot activate their effects. If this card attacks the defense position monster, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. Okay, so literally this card, it just stops your opponent from playing the game pretty much, because their stuff is going to go to defense position. It's going to be dragons, going to go to defense position. They can't activate their effects. I mean, it just keeps smacking them in the face with piercing damage. This card is so good, man. Getting out like 2 of these bad boys on the field at once and like having like all their stuffed dragons, good lord, that's just so troublesome, because even if they're able to out one, you're gonna have to deal with the second one. So it's just really awesome boss monster. It looks amazing. It does so much. I mean, literally, I play this deck against Steve, and he knows immediately. Like, he's like, all right, I gotta do stuff before he gets the Dragon Destroyer out. Like, this card is really cool. Again, if you want to run this at 2, that's totally fine. You can do that. And I'm also running 1 Millennium Eyes Restricted. If you don't want to run this and don't want to run Instant Fusion, you can take both of them out and have a spot for your extra deck and a spot for your main deck, but I'm choosing to run it into this deck. So moving on to the synchros, I'm running double of Buster Dragon. So Buster Dragon is really cool. All monsters your opponent controls become dragon type monsters. Once per turn, if you do not control a Buster Blader monster, you can target a Buster Blader monster in your graveyard and then special summon it. Okay, this is already looking good, right? Once per turn during your opponent's turn, you can target 1 Buster Blader monster you control and equip it with 1 Destruction Sword monster from your graveyard. This is a quick effect. So all your opponent's monsters become dragons. Once per turn, if you don't have a Buster Blader, you're gonna have a Buster Blader. And then, in your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can literally decide how you want to lock your opponent out of something. Pretty much, straight from the graveyard. So this card is really awesome. It's definitely very key to this deck. I do recommend you play 2 of this if you're able to get your hands on 2. I know they were a little expensive for a while. I don't really know. I haven't looked at the price of them. lately. But this card it's phenomenal, and your opponent is going to want to get rid of it quickly. So yeah, if you're able to play 2 of this, I do recommend it. I mean, you could get away with 1. I'm not saying you can't play the deck without 2, but it just helps. And then just for the rest, basically generic stuff, running 1 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss and 1 Borreload Savage Dragon. These are just my 2 other Syncers of choice. You can literally play any other Syncers that you wanted to. I'm running double Buster Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman. This card's really cool because if this card is Link Summoned, you can send 1 Destruction Sword card from the deck to the graveyard, which is awesome. Then you can special summon 1 Buster Blader monster from your hand, which is even better. So you literally get set up twice. It's great. Let's see. At the end of the, I forgot where I was. At the end of your battle phase, if your opponent controls no monsters, you can target 1 Buster Blader monster you control that did not declare attack this turn, and inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack. You only use each effect of Buster Whelp Destruction Swordsman per turn. So basically, if your bad boy has, your Destruction Swordsman, he can't attack directly. That's the caveat. This basically gets around that. It just straight up burn them for his attack. It's basically, circumventing the can't attack directly thing. It's really cool. You could run this at 1, but I like it better at 2. And then lastly, just for a few more, running 1 IP, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Unicorn, and then lastly, 1 access code. Of course, you don't have to have access code. If you have Abramax or something like a $2 card can win you games, you can run that. But if you do, it just works well with this deck. So that is actually it for this deck profile, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed it because this is a really fun deck. A Buster Blader, it's not quite as iconic. I mean, I guess some people might be. But it's not quite as iconic as like, Red Eyes or Blue Eyes or Dark Magician. But it's just a really awesome boss monster. Back in the day, I really loved them. And the fact that they basically reamped it and gave it support and they gave him a really cool other version of himself. It has some really awesome effects. It's just a lot of fun to play. If you haven't played with this deck, I do recommend you pick it up. It's not very expensive at all besides Buster Dragon. Again, I don't really remember where he's sitting, but he was like 18, 20 bucks a piece at one point. I'm not really sure where he's at right now. So let me know down in the comments below, how much is Buster Dragon at the moment? Because I don't know, and I'm gonna forget to look after this video. But yeah, thanks for watching so much, guys. I really appreciate it. If you're here and you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe. Now's the perfect time to do so. Hit the bell so you can be part of the notification team. Give this video a thumbs up. It allows my videos to circulate around YouTube. It says, hey, I like your video. I like your content. Keep it up, buddy. And yeah, makes me very happy. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see y'all in the next video.